Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello. Now we're just coming to the end of 2024. And before you know it, we're going to zoom into 2025. Now I don't want to discuss 2025 because we're not there yet. And I don't really... Well, I know what's going to happen. There's going to be some planets that change signs, but I don't particularly want to focus on that at the moment. We've got a special guest that's coming up next weekend, so I'll let you know about her, who she is and what's happening at the end of this podcast. But today, what I'd like to do is to go through the chart for a guy called John Gray. Now, I've been in private practice for 30-something years, and the book that I recommend the most and have done consistently since I started working is the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and it's authored by a guy called John Gray. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to go through his natal chart. There's quite a lot that's happened to him, so we'll cover a certain amount of things, but the reason I want to cover is his chart is he's only just had his birthday, because today is the 29th of December and his birthday was yesterday, which was the 28th. Now, he is famous for the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and I do recommend that. The one I recommend the most, because I lied earlier on, sorry, I remember the wrong title, is Mars and Venus on a Date. The Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus book is quite a heavy read if you're not into thick books that are going to repeat themselves. Luckily, I mean, it depends what your reading style is. Luckily, the Mars and Venus on a Date book, I think, is a little bit more cheerful and also gives you strategies, if you're single, regardless what age you are, on how to get into a partnership, what's involved, what goes on for the other person. And I like the way that he has written it in very, very easy English. You don't need a degree, you don't need to have loads of letters after your name or qualifications or understanding of anything to be able to understand the book and the things that he describes. And then the best bit of the book is the last chapter. There's a list of 100 different places that you can, this is if you're a woman now, that you can meet a man. And I just thought that in and of itself, just the book. So if you're a woman looking for a man, there are 100 places where you're most likely to meet a man. And I thought that was quite clever. Now, obviously, the book is written from the perspective of him being a man, but the plus point to that again is that because he's letting you know what goes on in a bloke's mind, then you're more likely as a woman then to be able to understand what the heck is going on and how to move forwards and blah blah blah. Now, he himself has been married 3 times, so we're going to look at his first wife. I don't think I can find the data for his second wife, and I've got no idea about his third wife, but we'll see how we do as we go along. And he's famous for relationships and how to sort of cope and stuff, but he's got a very, very interesting story, which I'm sure you will enjoy. Now, I'm quoting from a page on the Wayback Machine from an older version of his website. This is not what it says on his website now, but it says, John Gray was born on December the 28th, 1951 in Houston, Texas. He's the 5th of 7 children. Both his parents were eccentric. His father was a Texas oil man and Christian, but he also studied Eastern religions, Judaism and the Torah. His mother was also a practicing Christian, but she owned a metaphysical bookstore in Houston called the Aquarian Age Bookshelf that sold esoteric, metaphysical and New Thought books from every tradition in the world. We looked like the typical Christian Texan family to our friends and neighbours, but we were far from traditional, John explains. My mom and dad taught us yoga and fed us extra vitamins and protein pills every day before school. When I was a baby, my parents drove me from Texas to Los Angeles to be blessed by the great Indian saint Yogananda. His book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, would inspire me greatly later in life. So that's just now don't forget what I'm quoting is from someone or himself that was on his website at one point. So we're speaking from his perspective. So it's not an outside view. This is friends or mates or himself. Okay, so, and I also need to offer the codicil that 9 times out of 10, you can recommend a book, you can recommend a person, and then sometimes what happens is the whole life falls apart and they turn out to be lunatics or something. So I accept no responsibility for his personal life. If you were to contact him, go on a course or whatever, there is no money back guarantee for my recommendation of his book. I'm not saying his book is marvellous, therefore he is marvellous, then go and study with him or what. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the book has helped a number of my clients and has helped me in the past. And in fact, it was a bit of an eye-opener when I read the book. Don't forget, I've got a son in the 7th, so close personal relationships are very important to me and for me. So I did find it incredibly useful. The other book that I read when I ended up being single because my husband had run off with another woman was a book called The Rules, Rules, which I don't recommend. However, it was useful for me at the time. I did sort of learn a bit, but I learned, inverted commas, more from his books as far as relationships go. So, he himself is a sun sign Capricorn, moon in Capricorn, and Mercury in Sagittarius. And in a second, I'm going to read something from his website, which he obviously doesn't fully understand, natal Western astrology. Anyway, he's got a Taurus ascendant, 27 degrees, 59 minutes and 9 seconds. So it's nearly 20. So it's a very late degree Taurus ascendant, but it's still a Taurus ascendant. So the ruler to the chart is Venus. Interestingly, what does he spend his life devoted to? Mars and Venus. And his natal Venus is in the sign of Scorpio, and it's in the 6th house, and it's also a late degree. Now his sun and his moon, because he's born on a new moon, are located in the 8th house: sex, birth, death, reincarnation, the other world, investments, but his ruling planet to his chart is in the 6th, health, routine, work, etc., and in Scorpio, which isn't a particularly good sign for Venus to be in if there's sharing going on. Scorpio is not the sign for sharing, that's Libra. Venus forms a square to Pluto. Pluto's retrograde in Leo in the 3rd house of communication. So he likes to talk about himself as being a teacher. I'd say that was more his Mercury being in the sign of Sagittarius in the 7th. So if you have Mercury in your 7th, then you do want a partner that you can speak with. However, when Mercury goes into Sagittarius, it's the sign of infinite knowledge and people that like to feel as if they know stuff and they're, inverted commas, an expert in it, etc. So his Mercury is in a different sign to his sun sign, and his sun is conjunct to Chiron, which is 4 degrees Capricorn, and his sun sign 6 degrees. So there is, and there has been a certain amount of suffering going and stuff, but we're doing the whole of his life, so we're going to be here for a while. We've got Cardinal is pretty dominant in his chart, because we've got Sun, Moon, Chiron in Capricorn, we've got Uranus in Cancer, we've got a Grand Cross because we've got Jupiter in the 11th in Aries, and then we've got a little stellium going on in the 5th house, Neptune, Mars and Saturn, all in the sign of Libra. So he's predominantly cardinal. Yeah, the majority of his planets are in cardinal fixed, mutable. Yeah, because fixed he's only got 2, and mutable he's only got the 1, which is his Mercury. There's nothing else that's mutable. 0. So I think I've covered all the planets. Did I cover everything? Yes, and his north node is in the sign of Pisces. Is that right? North nodes. Pisces in his 10th house. So the 10th house is the career. I would definitely say it's a typical Capricorn, is that he's career driven. I mean, he did get to the top of, I mean, it's one of the best selling books. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's pretty much a best selling book. The men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Now, let me just quote what I said I was going to say from his website. So we got Sun and Moon in Capricorn and Mercury in Sagittarius. So he says on his website, where did I see that? In Western astrology, John Gray is a Capricorn. Capricorns are down-to-earth, practical, loyal to their friends and love things that make sense. In Eastern astrology, John Gray is a Sagittarius. Sagittarians usually love to travel to new places, learn new things, and share with their friends. I was thinking, at some point he's using astrology. I can't remember what year it was that I've quoted this from. But yes, he's travelled, but that's not because he's in Eastern astrology as Sagittarius. It's in Western astrology. He's got his flipping Mercury and Sagittarius. I read that and I thought, oh, you're covering two different bases and comparing them when they're not comparable. But anyway, in Western astrology, he is a Capricorn, but his Mercury's in Sagittarius. So John was a small kid, but he always stood out in the crowd. This made him popular, but also target of bullies. His mother signed him up for karate at a young age so he could defend himself. Walking home from school by age 12, he was receiving honours and landing on the covers of karate magazines. Besides the early fame, karate brought John a deeper understanding, discipline, meditation, and the best defence is to avoid conflict in the first place, John explains. That idea has been the basis for all my teachings about relationships. So he got a newspaper delivery. I'm going to go into so much detail. When he was 14, he had the newspaper delivery, and he said, I delivered the news. That was the beginning. Ever since that first job, my life has been about getting up early, working hard, and sharing the news I find. That is so much words that are Sagittarius. Mercury, Sagittarius. I want to share the news. I want to help you learn. Yeah, that's not a Capricorn thing. I was 18 and it was after, he attended Lama High School in Houston. Both his parents attended the Stanford University and John was expected to do so as well. But in 1969, when he was a high school senior, John went to a transcendental meditation seminar that changed his life. I was 18 and it was after a bowling tournament, John explains. I was walking to my car and my friend invited me to go to a samurai demonstration. It turned out to be a seminar on meditation. At first I was disappointed, but once I began to listen, I was totally inspired. And then he goes on quite a bit about 1969, the Beatles and drugs and all the rest of it. And then he says he didn't want to do drugs. He got more high on meditation. So if 18's that significant for him, then we need to look at transits for the age of 18. Now, it's difficult when somebody's born on the 28th of December. When are we saying is he's 18? Because he's 18 just before the year ends. So am I using the year 1968 or am I using 69? Because he's going on about it being 69. So he's just turned 18. And so this is what the question, what month am I going to use? I've got no idea when a meditation class would happen. I would presume it wouldn't be in the winter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little transit rhythmogram for that year, 1969. And I'm also going to do the 1st of June, 1969. Let's see what was going on for him that he was so influenced by this meditation class. Remember, of course, that he grew up with slightly wacky parents. But what was it about that? What was going on for him astrologically? Remember, of course, that he's got ruling planet is Venus. So let's have a look. So in 1969, and I've done 1st of June, the transit that stood out for me was, remember, of course, ruling planetary chart is Venus. He's got Venus in Scorpio in his 6th. Well, on the 1st of June, now this would have been for the whole of that year. I'll double check on the transit rhythmogram in a second. But we got transit in Neptune's retrograde at that point, and it is 26 degrees, and his natal Venus is 24 degrees. So he would have had transiting Neptune for the whole year, and I'm just sort of backtracking in my mind. When he was born, Neptune was in his 5th house. Okay, so this would have been the first time that a major outer planet has made any conjunctions in his chart. So to me, that makes sense, because I'm an astrologer, okay? When you're an astrologer, things got to make sense. But why would suddenly somebody get into it? Because transiting Neptune, which is the one that we're going to use when it comes to things like meditation, that is definitely a Neptune thing. Now, in the transit rhythmogram, I think we can pinpoint, so we've got 1969, Neptune, yeah, see, it's not exact, okay, so the exact would have been the year before, but it's within orb. What the transit rhythmogram is telling us is that transiting Neptune is now mathematically opposition to his ascendant, and it did it 3 times that year. So not only is it conjuncting and getting near to his Venus and doing the thing, but it's also opposition to his ascendant, okay, because his ascendant is 27 degrees, and on the 1st of June it was 26 degrees, yes, so that's a direct opposition, and it did it January, April and November. There's what else we got there? We've got Saturn's trining to his sun sign. So Saturn is trining to his sun sign. Saturn's in Taurus in 1969. Where's Saturn gone? Oh yes, so Saturn started working its way through his 12th house, which is his ruling planet to his sun sign. That's forming a nice trine, and that does that in June/July 69, and then again in October 69. Jupiter, which is the planet of knowledge, etc., that's in opposition that year, so that did it 3 times, January, February 69, and then again in July 69. So he has got some, so if we're looking at, what was going on with the outer planets for him, because the transit rhythmogram only covers Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Okay, Jupiter, which is your planet that you're going to be considering if you want to learn stuff, is directly opposite his natal Jupiter. So transiting Jupiter. Where the heck's it gone? Transiting Jupiter. Oh, okay. So transiting Jupiter earlier on in the year, January, February was opposition. And when I've done this transit rhythmogram, it's actually in Virgo, because it progressed into Virgo and then it retrograded. So he got a triple hit of Jupiter being opposition to natal Jupiter. And then in October, transiting Jupiter is exactly conjunct to his natal Saturn. So there's quite a lot going on for him astrologically if we're considering things like meditation and sort of learning about spirituality. Those are the planets you need to consider. So the ones that come under consideration for finding the answer, life, universe and everything is Jupiter and Neptune. Saturn is the dark night of the soul and will sort of solidify things, and it's not especially nice when Jupiter conjuncts natal Saturn. I think Jupiter transiting conjuncting natal Saturn is nicer than transiting Saturn conjuncting natal Jupiter, because when the transit of Saturn conjuncts a natal Jupiter, it sort of takes the air out of and snubs out our natal Jupiter transiting Saturn. So I think transiting Saturn conjuncting natal Jupiter is worse than the other way round. So that would have made him question things, and that was in October that year. What's Pluto? Pluto's forming a sextile to his Venus, because Pluto's in Virgo, he's got Venus in Scorpio, I don't know. And then Uranus only does, and then those things are repeated later. So transiting Uranus being in Libra is opposition to his natal Jupiter and square to his sun sign. So get off your bum and do something. It does that 1, 2, 3 times. I think it was last week I said that, yes, because I'm sure I was quoting Donna Cunningham last week, that when you look on the transit rhythmogram, you'll see that those exact conjunctions with the outer planets, because of the way they retrograde, etc., will do normally 3 sweeps of summit. And if you haven't learnt the lesson by the 3rd sweep, then you're deaf, dumb, blind, or stupid. Gosh, that's a bit awful, isn't it? There's Pluto later on transiting Saturn does some squares to his Pluto. Okay, so that's when he started getting into meditation. So it says, while his friends were at Woodstock, John left for Europe to study with the master of transcendental meditation, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Little did I know when I accidentally stumbled on my first TM seminar that it was the beginning of a lifelong spiritual and practical quest for developing and expressing my full potential, explains John. So John spent the next 9 years travelling everywhere Maharishi went and attending every training Maharishi ever taught. John was a sponge for the wisdom, and he eventually became a personal assistant, master trainer, went on to train 15,000 transcendental meditation teachers and over 3,000 transcendental meditation centres around the world while he was with Maharishi. No way of confirming those numbers. They look pretty enormous, but anyway, many of these teachers went on to become world-famous meditation teachers. He also started reading different texts of religions and philosophies, and his studies eventually led to a bachelor's and master's degree in the science of creative intelligence from the fully accredited Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. He goes on about when he was with the Maharishi Yogi, he was celibate, blah, 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 blah. I learned to find happiness without women. He was meditating 14 hours a day and regularly fasting on lemon and water. That affects your thinking, actually, if you don't eat much. Now, just going back to his natal chart for a moment, someone who has the sun in the 8th house, once they get their head around something and sort of want it, they won't stop to be able to get it. It's very much that Scorpio type of energy. I will persist, I will get there, and they're drilled down. It is a house that doesn't want to be on stage. I mean, he has been on stage, I suppose he's had to learn how to do it, but they're more a sign that wants to be in the background. And when the sun is in the 8th, if the person has made up their mind to do something, just get out of the way, they're going to do it, type of thing. Now, so we get into, so he's doodling along, he's doing the thing with the Maharishi, and then it says here, so in 1978, John's brother asked him for help from a mental hospital. His brother had suffered from bipolar disorder and was struggling to find happiness. John had encouraged meditation from the past, but it didn't help. So John left the Transcendental Meditation movement and Maharishi and returned to the United States to try to help his brother get out of depression. John ended up in Los Angeles, California, trying to find a cure for his brother's bipolar disorder. Los Angeles had become a hotbed of new therapies like Gestalt, transactional analysis, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, Scientology, primal screaming, I don't remember that one, EST, I do remember that, somebody over in the UK, I did that, insight seminars, rebirthing and loving relationships trainings, but first he had to find a place to sleep. So it says he was homeless and he was primarily sleeping on a beach in Santa Monica. And he says, I had 2 degrees but not much work experience on my resume. I was good at meditating for hours, teaching yoga and simply living with peace of mind. But those things couldn't pay all the bills back then. Every couple of days, John saved enough money for a hotel room where he could take a shower and sleep in a bed, but most nights were spent on the beach. He recalls one night sitting by a fire on the beach with a dozen other homeless men trying to teach them about God and their true purpose in life. They said to me, John, we love listening to you, but we have no idea what you're talking about. I knew I was in the wrong place and needed to move on. That was definitely not my audience, John recalls. Anyway, he says he swallowed his pride and asked his mum for help, and she gave him some money to take a computer programming course. And in 1979, he moved to San Francisco as a computer programmer and was finally only able to earn enough money so he could continue his psychology studies and participate in new courses for personal growth. When he reached San Francisco, we'll come on to that in a minute, when he reached San Francisco. So I got 1st of June 69. Neptune's now 26 degrees, is still hovering around his 6th house. Oh, what am I looking at? Sorry, wrong chart, big one. 69. Where did I put my 1970? Right, so I've just done the transit rhythmogram. So 69, that took us up. The first one took us up to 1973. The second one does us 74 to 78. And it was 78 that he came back to the US. But if you just look, so go on to the show notes and have a look. 1974, 75, just a toodles. Saturn was conjuncting this and that, and Jupiter was poodling along. As we get to 76, 77, can you see those peaks? It's getting much, much more active in his chart. Like, there's loads of peaks. So we've got Pluto's doing tons of stuff, because when he was born, his Pluto's in Leo, and now it's in Libra, so it's conjuncting and getting near to his natal Saturn, and Pluto, deep change transformation. So in 78, Pluto is now conjunct to his natal Saturn. Okay, as we say in Echo, don't know why I say that. Please say it's okay. So I've done 1st of June 78, because this is the reason that he supposedly came back from all his studying. Yeah, Pluto's beginning now, because that first thing was the outer planet conjuncting his natal Venus. Now we've got an outer planet that's caught up, and it's conjuncting his little stellium that's in the 5th house, which is also in opposition to his Jupiter. Now, because of the nature of his chart, he would have spent from that time onwards, so from 1978 onwards, with Pluto going chunk through 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th house. And don't forget, Pluto's been in the sign of Capricorn since 2008, has now just gone into Aquarius. And he's got he hasn't got a one-sided chart, he's got a sort of a seesaw, but he's got the predominance of his planets on the right-hand side of his chart. So I would say, in my professional opinion, that lengthy Pluto transit, he's only just been released from it. But we'll come into that in a minute. Because his outer planets are bottom left of his chart, his Uranus and his Pluto, whilst his Neptune is part of his little stellium. So I have covered this before in the podcast. When an outer planet makes its first conjunction to some soft, gentle little planet in your chart, like your Mars or your Venus, or well, Mars isn't gentle, but to your Venus or your sun sign or whatever, or your Mercury, and then you yourself will go, eek! I've never felt this before. So keep in mind, with Pluto going through Aquarius, if you've got anything in Aquarius, you are going to feel it. And then it's a bit sort of like a noise in the background. So I don't know, my son's been living in Bristol for umpteen years, and they've done nothing but build blocks of flats and buildings near to where he is. And I'm not saying he's got used to the noise, but it becomes a sort of a background thing. It's not something you think about every day. But when it first starts and they first start putting the scaffolding up and the banging about and whatever, it must drive people crazy. But after time, it sort of then becomes white noise background, because you've heard it so much. You have to, in your mind, sort of blot it out and concentrate on other things. It's the same thing with an outer planet. When it starts to cause havoc in your chart, that initial bash that it makes, you go ouch, and then it's sort of like it becomes that background, oh my god, and then you either accept it, because that's what you have to do, or you don't accept it and you suffer, because acceptance stops suffering. Now the next thing that happened to him, he says, where's my list? So it was 1980 with John met and dated his future wife Bonnie for 1.5 years. I wanted to marry her. She had 2 children from a previous marriage. Oh, sorry, let me go back a bit. So he asked his mum for help, did the computer programming, reached San Francisco, shagged lots of women, began teaching seminars. They were called Enlightened Sexuality Seminars, and each had about 20 people at them. And I thought, if that isn't a Venus ascendant rule chart, Taurus ascendant, I don't know what it is. At first, John focused on tantra and spiritual sex, but shifted his approach to how we share and express love and relationships. I discovered the golden key during these seminars. When we gain an understanding the differences between men and women in a positive way, one could sustain love and passion for a lifetime. So then, in 98, he met and dated his future wife, Bonnie. Now, in near enough all of his books, the first lot of books, he talks about Bonnie because she definitely helped him write them. We will do the date and then publish it. I wanted to marry her. She had 2 children from a previous marriage and asked me if I wanted to have children. I loved her daughters, but I wasn't interested at that time in raising children. She said, I don't think you're ready. She was right. So they broke up. Now, I managed to find her, well, not so much a chart, but I managed to find on an ancestry type of page her date of birth, and I've hidden it now. Where have I put it? Here we go, Bonnie Gray. So I haven't got a time of birth, but I've got a date of birth and location. I will put the links in the chat in a minute, but you can see from there that he's a sun sign Capricorn, she's sun sign Capricorn. There's only 1 year difference between the two of them. She's got moon in Gemini, I'm making a chatty and stuff. She's got Mercury in Aquarius conjunct Jupiter, and she's got Saturn in Virgo. So with that year's difference, Saturn's changed sign for him. They've got a bit of a sort of connection. Her planets, I think her Venus is very near to his MC, because he's got MC 11 degrees and her Venus is 17, so it's not far off, and her Jupiter's 6 degrees, so definitely she helped his career, no two ways about it. And they've got a Mars both in the sign of Libra, so past life there could have been brothers, that type of thing, but with the suns in the same sign, so her sun conjuncts his moon, her sun conjuncts his sun, so you've got a certain amount, it's not necessarily going to last forever, a certain amount of understanding. So Neptune's in the same sign because that's slower. Uranus is in the same sign, and he's got his Uranus in the second opposition to his sun and his moon. So I thought, oh well, yeah, we'll come into that in a minute. So he dates her, dumps her, she dumps him, and then he says after this heartbreak, he met a woman called Barbara de Angelis. She didn't want children, was also focused on her work of teaching relationship seminars. They dated for 2 years and taught seminars together. By the time they married, they were teaching seminars to 100 people at a time. John was married to her for 2 years before he learned about the relationship by the hard way, divorce. So she started dating someone else. In 1984, she fell in love with another man and left. It was devastating, John says. On a personal level, I felt inadequate as a man because my marriage had failed. On a business level, I felt I'd lost credibility in my career because we had this ideal relationship, or so I thought. So let's have a look at Barbara Angelis, because we have got her actual chart. What possibly could have been the attraction for him to finish with this Bonnie lady, because he didn't want to do the kids thing, and then to date this lady and bomb. There we go. So she's born on the 4th of March 51, same year as him, so majority of the outer planets are going to be the same sign. Her ascendant is 25 degrees Taurus. His ascendant is 27. So that's always an initial attraction. If someone else's ascendant is the same sign as yours and pretty much a near enough degree, you're going to feel as if you've touched Allah. You've achieved whatever it is you want, yeah. She natally has got her moon conjunct her MC. Their MCs are in the same sign because they've got the same ascendant. Their houses are in the same order with similar planets in them, but not exactly the same. However, she's a Pisces, God help us, with Moon in Aquarius and Mercury in Pisces. And her sun sign is in the 10th. So this is a career-focused person, somebody who absolutely wants to get to the top of what they're doing. Sun in the 10th, really wants to succeed in whatever they consider their career to be. So you can see how, the sun sign Capricorn and the sun sign Pisces are compatible to each other, but that moon thing's a bit of a niggle, and the Mercuries aren't going to communicate too much. And she's got Sun conjunct Jupiter, Mercury, and she found some of the signs of the zodiac that are on, I've said about this before, the ones that are on the dating sites are most are Geminis and Pisces. The signs of the zodiac that are more likely to have affairs than any others. I've got no data for this, but I can just tell you from the years I've been in private practice, the two signs that are more likely to are Pisces and Gemini. With Gemini, it's always because of tomorrow, mañana, and Gemini wants to have lots of different options, don't like to be tied down in any way. So, and Gemini's quite happy to have 6 relationships. So that relationship didn't last, but it did a sort of professional thing because his north node is in the sign of Pisces, and her Mercury would have been pretty clear and conjunct and near to that. So they've got a similar way of doing things, but totally different because their sun signs are different. So she ran off, he went through a divorce. He said there was a silver lining. The divorce forced him to reevaluate everything he'd thought about relationships. In the end, my ability as a therapist went up 1,000 times having gone through that experience. Although it may hurt now, there will be a day where you can say, thank you because I became a better person from this, John explains. I discovered that what makes women happy is completely different from what makes men happy. This belief became the cornerstone of his Mars-Venus books. Now, 9 months after his divorce, he got back in touch again with Bonnie, and he said, a few months later they married. I always knew she was my soulmate, but I had to convince her to love me. That's a wonderful foundation for a relationship to have. Women should not get lost in trying to earn a man's love. He should do things to win her over. At times when the relationship's not going well, I still love Bonnie unconditionally. I could not have come up with the insights men are from Mars, women are from Venus if I had not gone through the failure of one marriage to succeed in another. So at this point, when this was written, they'd been married for 30 years and had 3 daughters, Shannon and Juliet from Bonnie's first marriage and Lauren from their marriage. And then in 1982, he did a degree in psychology from Columbia Pacific University. He said he worked hard for the degree. On the Wikipedia page, it says that they can't have it, but it's later on after he'd got his degree that particular university went clonk. Says I received criticism for attending that school because of the problems they encountered 15 years after I finished. And the Columbia Pacific University, the California Board of Education, shut it down. He began counselling couples in 1982, did spiritual counselling, and then he said 1985 John's life was forever changed. His father picked up a hitchhiker, as he often did. This one robbed him and locked him in the trunk of his car under the Texas sun. It ended up taking days to locate the car, and John's father died. He got the news on his honeymoon with Bonnie. They tried to make sense of the death, returning to the car, locking themselves in the same trunk. He locked himself in the same trunk where his father had died. I could see the scratches where he banged on the lid with a screwdriver looking for a way out. His father had popped out a tail light in an attempt to gain more air. John was able to squeeze his hand through the hole and press the button to open the trunk. When John emerged, he recognised the gift in his father's death. Life is about finding the right button to push that helps you get out of the box. His button for getting out of bad relationships box is acceptance of the other sex simply as being different. When you understand the opposite sex is simply different, nobody gets blamed. So 1985 was obviously a tragic time for him. I have got the date that he married Bonnie, and it's at that same time. What date? Hold it. We got the date that they get married. Oops. I can't find the exact date that his father died, but I have got the date that he married Bonnie. And transits for his charts, this is the actual date they got married, was the 12th of May 1985. Jupiter and the moon are in Aquarius, which is right near his MC. Venus, ruling planet to his chart, is conjunct his Jupiter. It's a nice date for a wedding. Saturn is retrograding on his natal Venus, so he's now taking love seriously, and Neptune is retrograding on his Sun, and Uranus is retrograding on his Mercury. Now, where in a chart would it indicate that you've lost someone close to you? The fourth house is home and roots, and the father can be represented by the 10th. I haven't got the exact date, and I haven't got time today to find it. But the date for his wedding, there is Saturn going on, so he said he was on honeymoon, so if he got married on the 12th of May, then his honeymoon would have been some time after. Then people don't normally go on honeymoon before. Are we saying that Neptune is the thing? Because that's working its way through his 8th. I would have thought it would be more Uranus myself, because that's sudden happenings. But we've got a whole host of planets that are retrograde. We've got Neptune, Uranus, Saturn and Pluto, and they're all outers. They're all retrograding. So his chart's quite divided by left-hand side is all the personal planets, right-hand side is the outer planets. So yeah, now he marries Bonnie, and then eventually Bonnie dies. So not only does dad die, and everybody's parents are going to die at some point, but he was devastated when Bonnie died. So we do have the date for that as well. The story's a little bit like King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, because he dated Camilla and then eventually married Diana, and everybody really liked Diana a lot more, but Camilla had gone off and married somebody else and it wasn't going to happen. And then after Diana died, Charles went back to her. So it's in this case, it's not that Barbara Angelis died, she went off with somebody else, but he goes back to the person that he was dating before. Anyway, poor Bonnie died on the 12th of May 1985. I won't do the transits to her chart. I'm doing the transits to him, because obviously when somebody dies, the person who's died gone is the person who's left behind. In what way does it affect them? And Jupiter is now transiting through the sign of Scorpio, so coming up to his Venus. It's not conjunct, but what we have got is we've got Saturn retrograding in the sign of Capricorn, and I could absolutely assure you that when Saturn gets near to your sun and it's transiting, it really isn't fun. I mean, the date that she died, it's 2 degrees Capricorn, and her sun sign, was she an earlier date of birth than him? She's 10 degrees. He is 6 degrees. Yes, so he's born earlier than her. He's December and she's a January baby. Apparently she's born on the 1st of January. Pluto's been transiting through Capricorn since 2008. The moon and Uranus are conjunct, so moon's 29 degrees Aries, Uranus is 2 degrees Taurus and retrograde. Neptune's up there in his 10th house, but Venus, which is the ruling planet to his chart, is now in the sign of Libra, and transiting is 22 degrees, and his natal Neptune's 21. So he had to reevaluate his whole life at that point once again. Transiting Mercury's 20 degrees, so that's near to his Pluto. But I would say, in my professional opinion, the Saturn transit, you really feel things under Saturn transit. Trust me. And the transiting Saturn is exactly conjunct. So right, Saturn is 2 degrees and his natal Chiron is 4. So that's a tough thing to happen. Now, he has remarried a 3rd time. I haven't got any of her details, but there's one more chart we're going to look at, because the man's not dead, so we're not doing whatever the word is. we're not doing an obituary, we're covering the major points in his life. Now we've got the date that the first Men Are From Mars book was published, so that's the publication date, was the 1st of January 1992. I'm not so sure that it's the 1st, but that's what it says for his ISBN number for the book. What I have also found, so we're going to look at both charts and then we're going to finish today. I'm going to look at the 1st of January 92, but we've got from the HarperCollins website where the book is, because this is a best-selling book. It's not just any old book, it's a bestseller. 50 million copies of that book have sold. As I don't know if that's more than J.K. Rowling's, but it's a hell of a lot of books. And the publisher was HarperCollins. It's been republished umpteen times, I'm sure. But that made a big difference to HarperCollins, to have a book that was that well purchased, I think it's that word. So the first one I've got is they've given us the date that he's finished writing the book, and there's a little clip of a letter that's been sent to the publisher saying, I finished writing it, it's 300 pages or whatever. And what I thought was really cute was the moon is now in the sign of Aries, and it's not far off his natal Jupiter, so that's sort of like a knowledge type of planet. Mars is conjunct with Saturn, so the sun's in Libra, Mars is in Libra, Pluto's chugging through the sign of Scorpio, Uranus and Neptune are conjunct, because that's what happened in the 90s. There's a lovely conjunction, all those little indigos started being born. And writing a book, having written a number of books myself, I know how much a torture it can be if you're not careful. Saturn has got to 0 degrees Aquarius and it's retrograding. So he finishes writing the book on the 25th of September 91. And the North Node is now conjunct to Neptune and Uranus in the sign of Capricorn, and he's a Capricorn. So these are outer planets now, Neptune and Jupiter. They're not retrograding, they're exactly conjunct his sun and his moon. The thing that, Neptune's the planet that's going to govern your spirituality and all the rest of it. He's sort of reached the point, the peak of his career, I would say this was it. Transiting Venus, which is the ruling planet of his chart, is now conjunct to his natal Pluto retrograde in the 3rd house. So I think that's quite a life-changing transit. The actual publication date, because don't forget this is the date it hits the shops, it's not necessarily when you get your first conference or whatever. So the 1st of January, obviously he's having his birthday, because his birthday's the 28th of December. He's just had his birthday because he's a Cappy. But the moon now is in Scorpio, and Pluto was there anyway previous year, but the moon is now conjunct to his natal Venus, and Venus is the ruling planet to his chart. And what I thought was extra cute was he's natally got Mercury 16 degrees Sagittarius, and transiting Mercury is now 18 degrees Sagittarius. So that's 7th house of close personal relationships. Mercury is all about communication. He's having a Mercury return with a little bit of Mars in there as well. So, where are Venus and Mars? I mean, Venus actually has just gone into Sagittarius as well. So Venus and Mars are transiting through the 7th house for a man who's written a book about how close personal relationships can be achieved, etc., and how to make the best of them. And I thought that was Mars and Venus going through his 7th house of relationships. Oh, that slightly ticks a box, doesn't it? Now, he would not have been able to control any of these dates. They're totally out of his hands, but I thought that's a nice chart for us to end on. So today we've been looking at the chart for the man who wrote the books. Well, the book, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus. The one I recommend is Mars and Venus on a Date. There is a webinar coming up, so let me just remind you of that. So that's coming up on the 16th of January at 7 p.m. UK time. We're going to go into more detail with solar arcs. So if you'd like to join me on that one, ping me over an email, mary@maryinch.co.uk, and I will send you the info. So as I say, today we've been talking about John Gray. We're coming into the new year. So the next episode, we're going to have a special guest. And her name is Alison Boulton, Boulton. She's got an MA. She's also got a DF Astrology, so she's got proper, which I haven't got. She's got a proper astrological qualification. She's an astrologer and a writer, and if you want to check her chart out, but we'll do it in more detail next week. It's Alison's with an S in it, no apostrophe, astrology.net, so you can find more details about her. But she's an astrologer and a writer, and we're going to be talking about, how she got into it, how did she get to where she is now, what hurdles did she have to overcome, what was it like for her, etc. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.